Hey everyone, welcome back, and this is episode 16 of Riding Backwards Podcast. I am Jason Klink. I am your host, and this podcast is built around all my years riding backwards in a fire truck. Some of my experiences, some of my life, and a whole lot of opinion. This podcast is just built around all of that life and experience in public safety. And just sharing my ideas and thoughts of some of that time and some of my experiences, as I was saying. Please, if you would like, comment and share this with anyone you might think would find it valuable, because I'm just building a small community around this podcast. Today's podcast, episode 16, has been a long time coming. It's been a couple, 2-3 weeks. You know, there was some parts of life getting in the middle or preventing me from recording another podcast episode. And, you know, family, we all had the flu and life happened and some travel and so on. It became difficult to sit down and record this. And really, I just didn't have the inspiration or motivation to create another podcast episode, struggling for content. But I was inspired here recently. Recently, I was having a conversation with one of the younger guys in my firehouse, and they were talking all about their experiences of going to Delaware and participating with a volunteer firehouse in Delaware, and some of the exciting things that were happening as they were experiencing a whole different system in the fire service, to the point where they're motivated to move there and spend more time there, probably because the weather's better in Delaware than it is in Central New York. But you know, really, this spawned a thought and a memory in my mind. I can remember a million years ago, being 18, 19, 20, even 21 years old. And there was a group of us in my volunteer firehouse. We had that aspiration to be career firefighters. And we would travel up and down the East Coast taking civil service tests, because back then civil service tests were necessary. And hundreds and thousands of people would turn out to take these civil service tests. So we went all over the place. I can remember traveling down to the city of Baltimore, taking the state of Massachusetts test. We even traveled the hours and hours over from Central New York to Grand Rapids, Michigan, across a whole lot of flat land with nothing to see, just to take a civil service test and get home and come to find out there was a residency requirement and we weren't going to get hired anyway. So, you know, I was also thinking along those same lines as when we went down to the city of Baltimore and took the Baltimore written test. So we take the written test, a group of us passed, including me. And at this time, I was probably 19, maybe. And, we got invited to take the physical agility test. So we go back down, take the physical agility test. You know, at me, 18, 19 years old, 5'6", 130 pounds soaking wet. I'm surprised I didn't fall over when I put fire gear on. Just not really physically adept to the job, in hindsight, quite honestly. But, you know, at that time of the mindset, I had done the job, I could do the job, so on and so on. You know, little man syndrome, always had something to prove. So we get down for this physical agility test, and it was no joke. It was hard. And I can remember it being very, very difficult, to the point, I think, at some point during the test, I probably almost threw up. But we were pulling charged 2.5-inch hose and sledgehammer, banging that against a metal target and so on. And I almost didn't finish. And I can remember being completely exhausted by the end of this physical agility test. So, and realistically, as we would find out, it didn't matter how well we did, another residency requirement, we're never going to get hired anyway. So it's one of those little logistic things you should probably take a look at before you go to take these civil service tests. Is, you know, do you have a shot at getting hired? Because you're almost wasting your time. Well, you're wasting your time, but you're not. I mean, having the experience, going through the written and the physical agility test. If you're a younger person, younger firefighter, it's worth doing that just to see what you're going to score and stuff. But logistically, if you don't have a shot, why waste the time going there? It's one of those things where there was a group of us that just wanted to be career firefighters at the time. Really our only shot within Central New York was the city of Syracuse, and everybody in Central New York wanted to work for the city of Syracuse. So that's why we went elsewhere to look for these opportunities. one of the opportunities that kind of fell in my lap at the time too, when I was 21, 22 years old, was becoming a federal firefighter for the Department of Defense and working at military installation bases. And that was something that was educational. The training I got on the military installations as a federal firefighter really set me up to be successful as a firefighter moving on throughout my career. Taught me things that the volunteer firehouse never did, and it realistically set me up for a career that could have worked for 25 years. But as life happens and different pathways present themselves, it didn't end up that way. But the different pathways you take, and it goes back to the conversation about experiencing different systems in the fire service. I started out in Rome, New York at Griffiths Air Force Base, and that was probably some of the best training I've ever had as a firefighter, even back then. And moving from there to working for the Navy at a Naval Training Center, Virginia Beach, that was a whole different system, very laid-back environment. But our base was attached to the city of Virginia Beach, so there was always opportunity there to work with the city of Virginia Beach. Plus, within 3 miles was Oceana Naval Air Station, and working with the Naval Air Station Fire Department as well. And from there, I had moved back to the Northeast and ended up at a Air Reserve Base in Massachusetts. And the Air Reserve Base, was very active on the reserve weekends or reserve weeks. During the week, there was less activity, but there was enough activity to keep us busy. And again, another great training fire department. We did a lot of great training there. And some of my brothers that had left Griffiths ended up at Westover because it was down the thruway 3 hours. One of my last stops on my travels working at military installation bases was Fort Drum in northern New York. And Fort Drum was a very large Army base. 3 stations, which was very different than some of the other bases that I had worked at. You had the main post, they called it, fire station, the main part of the base, the newer part of the base. You had the old post fire station, which was in the World War II era part of the air base, or I'm sorry, the Army base, and smaller station, one pumper. It was kind of in the middle of the 3, and then the 3rd station was out at the airfield. Which had the crash rescue and structural equipment, and that airfield was very active at times. So a lot of different opportunities. Plus, we supported the volunteer fire departments that surrounded the base within the county with our equipment and personnel. So, and that was always one of the things too, was with these military fire departments, they were always very well ingrained, not only in the base, in the military installation, but they were very well ingrained in the community, in the counties, in the city that they served and were connected with, which was a great learning experience. So this podcast today, kind of a ramble, but it really, listening to the young guys and traveling in different places. Oh, that was the other story I thought about. Completely wanted to put this as part of the podcast, so I'll do it quickly. Is there was a group of us. Back in the day, and I think they still have it, University of Maryland College Park had a very well-known bachelor's program in fire service engineering. And, the goal at the time was always to get an associate's here at the community college and then go to University of Maryland College Park and get the bachelor's or even a master's in fire science or fire service engineering. And the Prince George's County fire departments at the time that surrounded the college would give free room and board to the college students as long as you volunteered your time and you were a certified firefighter. You could live in the firehouse, answer calls when you weren't going to classes or working, and have that free room and board, which it was a win-win. And that was always the goal that unfortunately I never achieved, but a friend of mine had achieved that. So he was down there going to college, and we would go down and visit. There was a group of us that would always go down because they would let you ride. You could go down to College Park, bring your gear, and they would let you ride, and you'd be a mutual aid rider essentially. And we'd go down and we'd spend a weekend and answer a bunch of calls and get a bunch of new experiences and in a new system and learning a new system. It was some real fond memories that I'll never forget, because as a firefighter, it was very different from the volunteer house that I had come from, and it was almost like being in a career house. But looking back, it really was a fraternity within a firehouse, fraternity of brother firefighters that were going to college, and just living there. And it was a great time. So I just wanted to share these memories that I had of experiencing different systems within the fire service, having that aspiration of belonging to a career fire department, and ultimately being part of a career fire department. Life in the firehouse, it's just it's one of the best jobs in the world. Some of the best experiences that I've ever had. So with that, please drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know about your experiences in this kind of situation, traveling around to different firehouses around the country. I'd love to hear about them. Share this with anyone that you might think would find any value in it. I'm trying to gain a small community here. So with that, everybody be safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Have a great day.